Oh yeah, well, talking about prohibition, other substances on the Schedule One, we're seeing a renaissance, if you will, of psychedelics being moving at, I would say, even a faster pace now than cannabis ever did, due to some recent breakthrough studies and breakthrough being put on the breakthrough list for the FDA for psilocybin, the MDMA information that's coming out recently. Now, you've also had your experience with psychedelics. And what are your feelings on this new push and the science behind finding mental health relief in psychedelics?
Well, I'm a huge supporter. I mean, ironically, my dad's so well known for his work on cannabis, but he wrote two spectacular books on psychedelics. And when I was 13 in 1979, he wrote a book called Psychedelic Drugs Reconsidered, urging that psychedelics be taken out of the streets and put into the lab and tested for psychiatric purposes. In 1979, literally like 40 years ago, my dad was so prescient. He was so ahead of his time.
He really was.
I read that when I was 13. So starting at age 13, I've been a huge advocate of using psychedelics for psychiatric purposes because I read my dad's book. So I've been a huge advocate of this since literally for the last 40 years. It's really encouraging me that it's happening and that it's being studied and being adopted. It's really interesting to me that the doctors are open to this and they're closed to cannabis. I don't understand why they're closed to a drug where you take a puff or two and you feel mildly euphoric and you can still talk to people and engage. Like they're open to a drug where like you take a hit and like you're tripping for 8 hours. And like, it sort of mystifies me. I don't understand if it's because there are more concrete studies or if it's more like you still need the doctor be in charge, or if it's like there's a big pharma connection, or if cannabis paved the way for them to be open to psychedelics. I'm just not sure, but it just sort of mystifies to me how these like same doctors can be like, oh, cannabis is dangerous, it's psychoactive. And then they're like, sure, let's give everybody psilocybin. It just mystifies me completely. If either of you guys have an answer to that, please let me know. But
It's a dichotomy for sure, I don't understand it completely. Other than maybe it has something to do with pharma, the molecule. I mean, they're not talking about you growing mushrooms in your closet. They're talking about psilocin, the molecule, and very regulated. I think that's the way it's going to end up. I think Canada is a little more open to it. You can buy mushrooms now, just like you could buy pot before in Canada. So I don't know how far that's going to go as far as, traditional medicines being authorized. I'm hoping that in the laws that come through, that's considered, because many of these shamanistic practices with psychedelics are, they have their place as well, I think. So hopefully, it's encouraging.
I get to hear stories from my mom about like my dad and Carl Sagan visiting Terence McKenna on his island and stuff like that. I missed out on all the fun because I was too young. I'm so encouraged that this is happening, and I would be love to be involved in it. I'm just a little busy with the cannabis stuff. Sure. But once we get cannabis legalized, I'd love to do the psychedelic stuff.
And do you think that's going to happen relatively soon? How are you? What's your outlook?
Well, it's not like we're just going to legalize it. There's still going to be a lot of equity issues and a ton of education and a ton of people still sitting in prison. So it's not like it's going to be like a illegal legal. But in terms of federal legalization, there's nothing really stopping it now, except the fact that Biden seems pretty much against it. He just doesn't understand it at all. Like completely doesn't get the issue. Theoretically, if we get another Democrat after Biden, maybe then. So maybe in 5 years, 3 to 5 years, if we get another Democrat. If we get a Republican, we're sunk. And Biden, I don't think we're going to make any progress. But I think we're going to make progress with like safe banking and more. At some point, it's going to be like 48 states are going to have legal cannabis, and it's just going to start to look pretty ridiculous that we don't have federal legalization. And at some point, I think the federal legalization is just going to tip over, regardless of who's in control, because it's just going to be so. Mexico will be legal, right. Canada will be legal, half of Europe will be legal. So
Rooms in every city in most of the states full of cash of
Yeah.
IRS taxes collections. Yeah.
So at some point the dam's going to break, but I would say like if we got another Democrat after Biden, assuming he's one term, then it would get legalized. Would be my best scenario.
Yeah, I wish folks like you could have an audience with him to talk to him about your dad's research and what you found in your practice and throughout your life. And people like Alexis Bortel and Riley Maidler and other people who are really experiencing this plant. Maybe he could be swayed.
I would love to. I wonder if he's if he'd be mentally nimble enough to sort of challenge his preconceptions and his view. I mean, no, really. Someone like Sanjay Gupta is. I wonder if Joe Biden is. I mean, I'd really respect him if he could.
Well, Cory Booker seems to think he's on board. He understands that decriminalization is actually descheduling, but I don't know if I agree with that because
I love Cory Booker. Cory Booker is one of my heroes. In this particular case, he sometimes looks a little bit like Don Quixote in The Windmill. So I'm quite sure Biden's as on board as Cory Booker thinks he is.
Well, we'll see what Schumer and the gang come up with. You know, they seem to be pushing hard. Maybe that's because they know Biden's not going to support it. I don't know. But they do seem to be making more moves in the Senate. 2 Republicans just introduced a new bill today to deschedule and, protect vets and interstate trade. Oregon loves that idea.
Yeah, but do nothing about social justice issues?
Yeah,
That's
no
not
social
okay.
justice.
Well, that's the problem is that, how do you put this? More people are interested in legalizing than are interested in legalizing plus social justice.
Yeah.
And if it were just legalization, like everybody would go for it.
Right.
Just a clean descheduling, I think they'd get much more support.
Right, exactly. But then the social justice people feel like this their only chance is to couple the two.
Right. And that's what
I
Schumer's
kind of
saying.
agree with him.
No, I agree with them too. I mean, you could really argue it both ways. I have friends that would kill me for arguing it this way, but you could argue like you don't want to put anybody else in prison. So like the sooner you legalize, the better. But the fact is, no one's ever going to go back and deal with social justice unless you do them together. So I mostly agree with that.
Be sure to check out our entire interview with Dr. Peter Grinspoon on the Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast on Anchor FM, iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you find podcasts.
Why don't you get wise? Get up and get out. Get rid of that frown that's been dragging you down and get up in the air. Just pretend that you can fly. You'll never know if you